Ari Hoffman, thanks for being here. You got your hands on some really interesting documents. What you really found, and I'll let you get into some of the dirty details of it, is that the state, health officials, politicians, they knew the vaccinated were spreading COVID, but still went forward with some of the strict COVID mandates.
Yeah, absolutely. A month before these mandates went into effect by Governor Jay Inslee and then were replicated by all the cities and counties that followed suit, what happened was you had the King County health officials and Snohomish County health officials discussing breakthrough cases and how you're looking at 20 to 30% of cases were breakthrough cases, and how you were seeing more and more of them in the hospital, seeing more and more people dying who had had the vaccine. And yet they went forward with this narrative of if you take the vaccine, it stops the spread. You're protecting yourself. And remember, Jay Inslee was telling everybody that you were carrying a bomb in your backpack. If you didn't get the vaccine, you were a bioreactor, super spreader, Trump supporter.
I want to reiterate that. If you're a 50-year-old man who, voted for Donald Trump and didn't think COVID was a problem and you don't get vaccinated right now, you arrest every kid in your city because you could be spreading a virus to a 10-year-old who can't get eligible for the vaccine right now. Now, some of us think that's not responsible. And if that's judgmental, so be it.
He was saying all that, and none of it was true. None of it was true. And yet Jenny Durkin, who's actually the one who started the question, who asked the question that started this whole thread, followed suit also, going along with those vaccine mandates. How many police officers, how many firefighters, how many people have been fired from the Washington Department of Transportation and all these other state agencies on this failed narrative, this false narrative that the vaccine stops the spread when actually it didn't. You have the health officials talking about a party with hundreds of people attending that was like a Burning Man type event, and it was a super spreader event. They were celebrating the fact that everybody had gotten the vaccine, and it was a super spreader event. You have them discussing how the Seattle Cancer Care Alliance was reporting that all their staff was starting to get COVID, and that their patients were starting to get COVID, and that they were reporting that the Fred Hutchinson Center was having the same issues. And they knew all this. All this information was going to the Washington Department of Health. All this information was going to the governor's office, and they still pushed forward with this narrative of the vaccine stops the spread. And it wasn't true at all. But who could question Jay Inslee? We didn't have a legislature doing anything back then. He was on day number 500, 600 of emergency powers. Nobody was doing anything to challenge this.
Well, and I want to get to the emergency powers in just a second. But when you look at, okay, here's what they're messaging publicly, which is, as you said, your Republicans are killing children in their communities if they're not vaccinated, and moving forward with firing people over the vaccine in the interest of public safety and public health. And then you're seeing behind the scenes that they knew full well that the vaccine was not as effective as they hoped it would be. Could this have an impact on the cases and litigation involving state employees or government employees who were fired over the vaccine mandate?
I don't mean to laugh for the people watching on video. They just saw my face light up. So as soon as that post went out, I had a dozen attorneys contact me,
Wow.
either through Twitter, either through Facebook, either through email. Everybody seemed like who has a case. Oh, and then their clients started contacting me. So all of a sudden I got inundated with all these people. Luckily, a lot of them are working together in groups. I'm like, all right, I'm sending it to this guy. They have the originals. And by the way, for any of these attorneys or people who are filing these lawsuits who are listening to your show, be in touch with me, ari@kvi.com. I will give you the emails because I'm in this for the fight. I want you to be successful so we can make sure something like this never happens again, so you can get your job back, so you can get the back pay that's owed to you. So yes, I mean, everybody saw this and goes, wow, this is a thing.
Well, and I'm always just in it for the truth, and I don't expect the government to always be perfect. I mean, obviously we know that's not the case, and it would have been fine if they're in this unprecedented situation and they thought the vaccines would be better and they weren't, and they came out and said, "Hey, the vaccines are just not what we thought they were going to be." I mean, it seems like if their interest was in public health and safety, letting people know as soon as they did that the vaccines were not going to be a panacea would have been the
Well,
appropriate thing to do.
especially when you're talking about cancer agencies,
Wow.
people who
Yeah.
are at higher risk than anybody else, people who don't have immunities, people who have pre-existing conditions, people who are elderly in hospitals, and they didn't tell anybody. And you know what's mind-boggling to me is that through this whole thing, we should have said science is always changing. If Dr. Anthony Fauci wanted to get past all his critics, he could have said, of course I went back and forth on masks. I was following the science and the science wasn't clear and we were learning more. That would have been his easiest way out. But instead it's, I never lied. I always told the truth. And that's what we're hearing from everybody. Instead of saying science evolves, we learn more. They never took the easy lifeline that was there for them.
On the emergency power reform topic, there is a bipartisan proposal to try once again to push through checks and balances on any future governor's emergency power. I mean, does this information that you got bolster that argument?
Of course it does. But the question is, and this is really on the Democrat side, I know people are going to say, well, it's Hoffman. Of course, he's going to rip the Democrats. What's the motivation for the Democrats to reform emergency powers? In a perfect world, it would be, well, eventually we're going to have a Republican governor around here one day. And would we want the same thing happening when he's in power or she's in power? But unfortunately, the Democrats here don't think they're ever going to lose. They don't think there's any fight from the Republican Party locally. They don't think they have anything to worry about. So what's the motivation? If this thing does not pass this time around, they are not scared of ever losing an election again. And that's not a voter fraud thing. That's where are our parties? Where's our messaging? Where's candidates? This time, my ballot had so many empty slots.
Yeah.
There was no Republican even on the ballot. Where's the effort? And they really think they've destroyed the Republican Party. I remember back in 2018, when I was running for office, I went to a few Democrat meetings, and one of the 36 district Democrats, when I was there, they literally celebrated the fact that Republicans were dead in King County. They literally said that at one of their meetings. They don't think they could ever lose ever again. So if it doesn't get reformed this time, that's really the reason why.